The souvenir hunter Jake Morrison wiped sweat from his brow as he navigated through the maze of vendor stalls in Bazaar Theta 9. The massive trading station spun lazily around the crimson glow of Kepler 442, its artificial gravity keeping thousands of species from across the galaxy anchored to its metal decks. Jake had 3 hours of shore leave left before his cargo hauler, the Honest Dollar, departed for the Outer Rim colonies. Human, come here. A raspy voice called out from a shadowy alcove between two gleaming tech vendors. Jake turned to see an ancient Zephyrian merchant, his 6 arms arranging trinkets on a worn cloth. Unlike the other vendors hawking their wares with holographic displays and aggressive sales pitches, this old creature seemed almost forgotten by time. Looking for something special for the journey home? The merchant wheezed, his translator, implant crackling with age. I have artifacts from the old worlds, before the great wars, before the ... He paused, studying Jake with compound eyes that seemed to see through him. Jake approached, drawn by curiosity more than any real interest in buying. His cargo pilot's salary barely covered ship maintenance and cheap station food, but his crewmates, back on the Honest Dollar, always ribbed him about never bringing back interesting souvenirs from his runs. What have you got that won't break my budget? Jake asked, running his fingers through items that looked like crystallized music and what appeared to be bottled starlight. The Zephyrian's manipulator arms suddenly stilled, his eyes fixed on Jake, with an intensity that made the human step back. You ... The alien whispered. You have the resonance, the blood echo. His primary hands reached beneath the cloth and produced a small medallion, no larger than Jake's palm. The artifact was unlike anything Jake had seen. It appeared to be carved from a single piece of translucent crystal that seemed to contain swirling galaxies within its depths. Intricate symbols covered its surface, pulsing with a faint inner light that reminded him of distant nebulae. This piece ... It has been waiting for one such as you. The merchant's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. But heed my words. Young human, never let it touch your bare skin until you are ready to claim what is yours by right of stars. Jake snorted. Right of stars? Come on, old-timer. Just tell me the price. My buddies'll get a kick out of some mystical space jewelry. No price, the Zephyrian said solemnly, wrapping the medallion in a cloth before placing it in Jake's palm. Only a warning. Lineage calls to lineage, and some doors, once opened, can never be closed. Jake pocketed the medallion with a shrug, tossing a few credits on the cloth anyway. As he walked away, he missed the merchant's final words, spoken in the ancient tongue of the Varex Empire. The heir has taken the crown key. Let the prophecy begin. Recognition Protocol Jake was whistling an old Earth tune as he made his way through the departure checkpoint, the medallion bouncing against his chest beneath his shirt. The custom scanner hummed its usual mechanical song as beings from dozens of species passed through the security arch. He'd done this routine 100 times, place personal items in the tray, walk through the scanner, collect belongings, board ship. But when Jake stepped through the arch, everything changed. The scanner's hum shifted to a deep, resonant tone that seemed to vibrate through the station's hull. The machine's displays flickered from standard green to brilliant gold, and ancient symbols, the same ones carved into his medallion, began scrolling across every screen in the checkpoint. What the hell? Jake muttered, looking back at the scanner. The security guard, a hulking kraken with mandibles that could crack steel, stared at his instruments in confusion. Then the chiming began. It wasn't an alarm. Jake had heard plenty of those during his years hauling cargo through questionable space. This was something else entirely. A melodic, harmonious sound that seemed to come from the station's very bones. Throughout the checkpoint, every display screen showed the same message in dozens of languages. Bloodline confirmation. Heir protocol activated. All hail the returned. "Sir, I need you to step aside," the Crafen guard said, but his voice carried a strange reverence that hadn't been there moments before. "There's been a development." Jake was about to protest when the checkpoint's main entrance iris dilated. With a pneumatic hiss, through it marched a squadron of beings Jake recognized from history vids Varex, Empire soldiers in their distinctive crimson and gold armor. The Varex hadn't been seen in this sector for over 3 centuries, yet here they were, moving with military precision toward his position. The lead soldier, a tall humanoid with silver skin and eyes like molten mercury, approached Jake and did something that made every witness in the checkpoint gasp. He knelt. "Your Radiance," the soldier said, his voice carrying through built-in amplifiers. "We have waited 347 standard years for your return. The celestial throne awaits." "I think you've got the wrong guy," Jake said, backing toward the exit. "I'm just a cargo pilot. Human, from the outer colonies. There's been some kind of mistake." The soldier's eyes fixed on the faint glow emanating. From beneath Jake's shirt, the crown key has awakened. It calls to its rightful bearer. "You are the heir celestial, descended from the first dynasty, blood of our blood, star of our stars." Around the checkpoint, other travelers were backing away, some recording with personal devices, others making frantic calls. The Crafen security guard was speaking rapidly into his comm, but his words seemed distant and unreal. "This is insane," Jake said, but even as he spoke, more Varex soldiers were arriving. Not threatening, but forming what looked disturbingly like an honor guard. Silver-skinned leader stood and gestured toward the docking bay. "A golden spear awaits your presence, your Radiance. The Empire has prepared for this day across centuries. Your coronation fleet stands ready." Jake looked around desperately, but there was nowhere to run. The medallion against his chest was growing warm, and its glow was becoming visible even through his shirt. Whatever was happening, he was in it now. The coronation fleet, the Golden Spear, was unlike any vessel Jake had ever seen. Where human ships were utilitarian and cramped, the Varex flagship was a work of art that happened to travel between stars. Corridors wide enough for parades stretched between chambers that seemed carved from single gemstones. The artificial gravity felt different, too lighter, as if the ship itself bent reality to make its passengers more comfortable. Jake sat in what they called the Heir's Suite, still wearing his grease-stained cargo pilot jumpsuit, while Varex attendants in flowing robes tried to convince him to don ceremonial garments that probably cost more than his ship. Through the massive viewport, he could see the fleet that had assembled hundreds of vessels, ranging from elegant cruisers to massive dreadnoughts, all bearing the golden star symbol of the Varex Empire. "Your Radiance must understand," said High Counselor Zelfane, a reed-thin being with skin like polished obsidian. "The Empire has been without an heir for over 3 centuries. Our civilization has been ... drifting, waiting. The crown key chooses its bearer based on criteria beyond our understanding." "But I'm human," Jake protested for the 100th time. "Your empire conquered half the galaxy before my species even left Earth. How can I possibly be your missing heir?" Zelfane's expression was patient, as if he'd explained this to confused. "Royalty before. The first dynasty was not Varex, your Radiance. They were the architects, beings of such advanced evolution that they transcended singular species. When they departed this realm, they left behind the crown key and the prophecy that one day a being would arise who carried the resonance of their bloodline, not in genetics, but in spirit, in potential." The medallion around Jake's neck pulsed warmly, and for a moment, he could swear he heard something like music at the edge of his perception. A new voice interrupted his thoughts. "Your Radiance," announced Captain Vorthik, the ship's commander. "We are approaching the homeworld. The population has been enthusiastic about your return. Through the viewport, Jake saw Virex Prime growing larger, a world of crystal spires and floating cities that glittered like jewels against the darkness. But what made his breath catch were the crowds. Millions of beings had gathered in the Aether, planet's great plazas, their voices creating a harmonic celebration that could be heard even through the ship's hull. "They're singing," Jake whispered. "The song of return," Zelthane explained. "It has been passed down through generations, waiting for this day. Every child learns it, though none expected to sing it in their lifetime." As the golden spear entered the planet's atmosphere, Jake felt something shifting inside him. The medallion's warmth was spreading through his chest, and with it came flashes of understanding that weren't quite memories. Images of star-spanning civilizations, of technologies that made reality itself malleable, of responsibilities that made his head spin. "What's happening to me?" he asked, gripping the viewport's edge. "The crown key is awakening your potential," Zelthane said softly. "You are becoming what you were always meant to be, your radiance. The question is, will you accept the crown that destiny offers?" Below them, the capital city's great pyramid was opening like a flower, revealing the coronation chamber where a throne waited, a throne that had been empty for 3.5 centuries, waiting for a cargo pilot from Earth to claim an empire he'd never wanted. The weight of crowns, the coronation chamber, was a marvel that defied physics. The pyramid's interior contained what appeared to be a pocket of space itself, with stars twinkling in the darkness above and below a platform that floated in perfect stillness. The celestial throne sat at the center, not carved from any material. Jake recognized, but seemingly grown from crystallized time itself. Thousands of Virex nobility filled floating galleries that orbited the central platform, their ceremonies and pageantry, a symphony of light and sound. Jake stood before the throne in borrowed imperial robes that felt heavier than spacesuits, the medallion now openly glowing against his chest like a captured star. "The blood tests confirm it," announced High Geneticist Morth, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. The resonance patterns matched the First Dynasty archives with 99.7% accuracy. The crown key has chosen truly. Jake's head was spinning, and not just from the ceremony's grandeur. Ever since arriving on Virex Prime, he'd been experiencing what Zelthane called awakening memories, flashes of knowledge, about technologies and governance methods that his cargo pilot brain had no business understanding. It was as if the medallion was downloading the collected wisdom of ancient rulers directly into his consciousness. "Your radiance," Zelthane whispered beside him. "The moment approaches. Will you accept the crown?" Before Jake could answer, a commotion erupted in one of the galleries. A group of Virex nobles in silver robes were standing, their leader a stern female with scars across her violet skin, pointing an accusing finger at Jake. "This is heresy," declared Duke Vashti, her voice cutting through the ceremony like a plasma torch. "A human? Leading the empire that conquered his homeworld? The crown key has been corrupted, or this pretender has somehow manipulated it." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Jake noticed how the crowd seemed to split into factions, some kneeling in reverence, others standing in what looked like barely contained hostility. The political undercurrents he'd sensed during the journey were becoming visible. "The crown key cannot be corrupted," High Counselor Zelthane replied, but Jake heard uncertainty in his voice. "It chooses based on worthiness, not species." "Then let him prove his worthiness." Duke Vashti stepped forward, her hand moving to the ceremonial blade at her side. "Let the pretender face the trial of stars, if he is truly our heir, the ancient. Technologies will respond to his command." Jake felt the medallion pulse against his chest, and suddenly he understood the political trap closing around him. Accept the trial and risk exposure as a fraud. Refuse and confirm the doubter's suspicions. Either way, He was walking into a situation that could end with him very dead. But as he looked out at the assembled multitudes, millions of beings who had waited centuries for this moment, he realized something that surprised him. They weren't just waiting for a ruler. They were waiting for hope. The empire was fracturing, its old certainties crumbling, and they needed someone to believe in. "I accept the trial," Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. Zalfane's compound eyes widened in alarm. "Your Radiance, perhaps we should—" "No," Jake interrupted, feeling the medallion's warmth spread through his entire body. "If I'm going to be their emperor, I might as well find out if I can actually do the job." The chamber fell silent as Duke Vashti smiled a predator's expression that promised trouble ahead. The key to everything, the trial of stars, took place in the pyramid's deepest level, in a chamber that had remained sealed since the last heir's reign. Ancient crystalline structures lined the walls, their surfaces dark and lifeless for over 3 centuries. According to tradition, only the true heir could awaken the architect technologies that formed the empire's foundation. Jake stood before the central console, a complex arrangement of crystal formations and energy conduits that hurt to look at. Directly, Duke Vashti and her faction watched from one side, while High Counselor Zelfan and the Loyalists observed from the other. The tension in the air was thick enough to cut. "The trial is simple," Duke Vashti announced. "Command the heart of empire to awaken. If you are truly the heir, the ancient systems will respond. If not—" She didn't need to finish the threat. Jake approached the console, feeling the medallion's vibration intensify with each step. As his hand neared the crystal surface, symbols began to glow faintly at first, then with increasing brilliance. The chamber filled with harmonic resonance as systems that had slumbered for centuries began to stir. But something was wrong. The awakening technologies weren't responding to Jake's presence. They were responding to the medallion itself. And in that moment of clarity, he understood the trap that had been laid centuries ago. "Fascinating," said a new voice from the chamber's entrance. A figure in deep blue robes entered, flanked by guards wearing symbols Jake didn't recognize. "The genetic binding artifact performs exactly as designed." Duke Vashti whirled toward the newcomer. "Archivist Nexon, what is the meaning of this intrusion?" The robed figure pulled back his hood, revealing features that seemed to shift between species, sometimes Virex, sometimes human, sometimes something else entirely. "I represent the Threshold Collective, Duke Vashti. We've been monitoring this charade with great interest." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the chamber's temperature. "Charade?" Nexon smiled, and his expression was neither kind nor cruel, simply ancient. "The medallion you wear, young pilot, is not a crown key. It's a genetic binding artifact designed to mark any bearer as the rightful heir, regardless of their actual lineage. It was planted at Bazaar Fate 9, specifically to be found by someone like you. Unimportant, easily manipulated, desperate for purpose." The chamber erupted in shocked voices, but Nexon continued over the noise. The Virex Empire needed a puppet ruler while the real power structure reorganized itself. A human was perfect, grateful for the elevation, ignorant of imperial politics, easy to remove when no longer useful. "That's impossible," Zelfane protested. The resonance patterns, the awakening technologies, all responding to the artifact. "Not its bearer," Nexon confirmed. "But here's what makes this situation interesting." His gaze fixed on Jake. "The artifact wasn't supposed to actually awaken the ancient systems. It was just meant to fool the scanners and genetic tests. The fact that the heart of empire is responding suggests that its true owner is nearby." Jake felt the medallion growing hot against his chest. The crystal formations around the chamber were now blazing with light, and he could hear something like breathing echoing from deeper within the pyramid. "You're not the ruler, Mr. Morrison," Nexon said quietly. You're the key to waking the real one. And they've been sleeping beneath the celestial throne for 3.5 centuries, waiting for the right resonance to call them home. As if, summoned by his words, the chamber floor began to crack. Light seeped through the fissures, not the warm glow of the awakened technologies, but something older and infinitely more powerful. Jake realized with growing horror that his quest for a simple souvenir had unlocked something that was never meant to be disturbed. The real heir was rising, and Jake Morrison, cargo pilot from the Outer Rim, was about to learn what it truly meant. To wake sleeping gods. In the distance, alarms began to sound as the pyramid's foundations shifted, and the Empire prepared to meet its true master at last.